Welcome to Simply Enough, where we celebrate you.
Because you are enough, just as you are.
Period. We've talked about how done is better than perfect.
So yes, maybe we will be thought partners with people on their journey, and hopefully they become for us too, because that would be pretty cool if it becomes reciprocal in that way.
B- work changes the world. Because what have I not started? What have I not done? What have I been afraid to begin because, I didn't think that I could be good at it?
We're going to go to nude beaches.
Okay. Didn't see that coming, but
no.
Hang on, everybody, for this ride. It's going to be a fun ride.
Welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr.
Welcome,
Zachary
everybody.
Linnert. Welcome.
Aloha. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio.
So for our first episode, this is going to be a little bit clunky because, we are trying to give the context of why we're here, and really share with people like why they should listen to us. And so
we've never done this before.
Ever. But you know what? I think let's go back to the beginning. So you were the one, Dr. Ignacio, that really had the idea for this. So how did Simply Enough come to be?
Well, Simply Enough came to be because you and I are so relational. Mm-hmm. We're so, despite our academic backgrounds, you and I hit it off immediately because we are just so relational. And so it actually came a little bit out of desperation for two reasons. One is you were leaving your island home, which is where I live. I'm here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and you were Chicago. Leaving for yes. And so it was our last lunch together, which we've had many a lunch and happy hour. Don't judge us together. And, you and I had just become so close and we just seem to resonate with each other. And so there's a little part of desperation of like, how can I keep this relationship going?
I love that.
And then secondly, also that it was during the time of this pandemic. So it was, it was the summer of 2021 and you were finishing up your school year and getting ready to move with your husband to the continent.
Yep.
Other people call it the mainland, but here in Hawaii, we call it the continent. And so I just always feel heard and seen and understood when I talk to you. And it's just so clear that I think everybody deep down needs to feel seen and heard and unconditionally loved and not judged. And then on top of that, it was and is still during the time of COVID. And so with all of the social distancing and the isolation and the pivoting of people's jobs, careers, roles, identities, and just all of the heavy stuff, I just felt like, we needed to be uplifted. So after the lunch, again, lunch was already over. And I just had this moment of desperation where I texted you because we had dabbled in the conversation about like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did some sort of collaboration together?
Yep.
And I actually had something brewing in my mind for a while, but the perfectionist that I am and the kind of, ready.
Yeah.
Aim fire kind of person. So I sometimes don't aim and certainly don't fire because I'm just always working on the ready.
Yeah.
I just knew that I didn't and really probably couldn't do what was brewing in my mind on my own. And so right after the text, right after our lunch, I texted you and I said, so about that possible collaboration and why I thought of you being the perfect person to partner with. Ultimately, it would be talking about and uplifting everybody. I thought starting with a podcast would come through evolution and divine intervention. And I just felt that, especially after last year, meaning 2020, I think people needed and need this uplifting and self-empowerment and self-advocacy and self-study, whether they realize it yet or not. And your personal history and journey, just like my personal journey of being an immigrant female in a male-dominated profession, and what mindset it took to overcome things in our lives, as well as the mindset that I myself have learned and witnessed from some of my most accomplished patients. As a sports medicine doctor, I've taken care of Olympic and Paralympic medalists, national and world champions. And then coupled with your education background, that we're so often on the same wavelength. Not that we have to agree all the time and be twinsies, but that our core values are similar. And again, we resonate and align with each other. And so that would make you the perfect partner with whom I'd have the most joy. And ultimately, it was about what could bring us joy. And if in doing this, what could bring others, our viewers, our listeners, joy. And I thought the podcast could, part be geared towards kids, since I don't think that they get enough of the kind of messaging, this positive, uplifting, self-worth, self-value, self-love messaging that you and I believe in. And part could be geared towards the parents and even educators, so they can be equipped with different tools and perspectives of bringing up children that they weren't exposed to when they themselves were kids. And then part could be geared towards uplifting the adults themselves, because they themselves might have to heal from the messaging and self-deprecating and self-sabotage that they learned from when they were young. So that is why I reached out to you with very much this abstract, more feeling than idea. It was really it was a feeling and a sense of a need, not only to stay connected with you, but a need that I feel that people, society, the world needs is uplifting, and a sense of self-worth and self-love and self-value to sustain us through hard times like we found ourselves.
And, I got that text and we had talked about it at lunch, and I immediately went to a place of self-doubt. It was, as I'm reading what you're saying, I go to this place of like, well, am I the perfect? Aren't there other perfect people that are better? I mean, she keeps saying that I'm the right person, but like, who wants to listen to me? And, what is my voice matter? Or there's more accomplished people. And I automatically went to that place. And it was so funny how, what you touched upon was actually alive in me in that moment. But, because I trust
alive in
you,
all of us, really,
and that's really where I think Simply Enough, like the value of it is so critical, because it's incredibly relatable. I think it's an experience, as we've come to find out, that many people go through. And just in talking to friends and family about this podcast, people are right on board right away. They're like, oh yeah, I feel that way, or I've had that, and I'm talking to people who are, they're like us. They're badasses, So sorry, adult content, adult language on paper. Yes. And you would think that like they're confident and they're self-assured, and you find, oh no, like there are ingrained self beliefs and negative self beliefs and negative self narratives that really prevent them from seeing themselves as enough. So initially I had that reaction of like, oh, like who wants to hear my voice? And I can say, just going through, the actual creation of it and putting in the time and the effort, it's a really pretty remarkable feeling to now be at a point where I'm like, no, we have some stuff to share. We have a perspective that's important for others, and that's important for ourselves, right? And
absolutely.
So I was scared. I was nervous. I had all that self-doubt when you sent that text. And I think, if I'm being really honest with you, the reason why I was like, okay, I'll do this, and then followed up, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And are we going to do this? And was just because I didn't want to lose our relationship and that frequent touch point. And I'm so grateful that one, that one motivation has actually spawned this and where we're at now.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that we are where we are. I'm so grateful that that you came up with this text. And then I'm also, I'm more excited for us as we go through this journey, and for our listeners and our viewers, because I do believe that um, that the takeaways that that I've gotten and that you've gotten, and I think that they will get, will change their lives. I really do, because it's already changed my life. So
Right. We've seen it in ourselves, right?
yeah,
And it's not, we're not doing this because we have all the answers
no,
and let us impart, because, both you and I are educators,
yep,
I'm a professor at the School of Medicine here, and it's not us imparting a
no,
lesson for it to be swallowed like dogma. We're
no,
on the journey too, but we have seen and continue to be on this journey of self-discovery and
mhm,
self-compassion. So it's a shared journey with
yeah,
our listeners and our viewers. This isn't some sort of didactic,
no,
note-taking lecture, but it is empowering so that each listener, each viewer can recognize in themselves their simply enoughness,
mhm,
because
mhm,
most of us have more pervasive, or at least the louder internal voice is that we're not enough, and
mhm.
either we're not enough of something or we're too
Too
much of
much of some,
another,
yep, yep,
but that's all externally placed.
yep,
And we learned that from conditioning and programming, way back from even our youth.
yeah,
And you know I'm a parent, we're both educators.
yeah,
It behooves us to make it right
mhm,
from youth,
mhm,
from the get-go for children. But how can we do that authentically if
right,
we have our own kind of wounds and
mhm,
insecurities to heal? So that's what this journey is for. So that's what's interesting, is how this in many ways started off just because and just for you and me.
yeah,
And if that's all it is, that's enough, right?
it
Because
is enough.
we've had our relationship, but it's actually a message that it can be and could be pervasive and permeate
Mhm,
all genders, all identities, all ages, um, and especially now,
yeah.
it's needed.
And it also can be prohibitive in so many of our lives that we keeps. I know I probably would have never started a podcast because I had this internalized belief, like who would want to listen to me, or I don't have anything worth sharing. Uh, another friend of mine and I had a similar conversation about a podcast, but it was the foundation was almost self-deprecating, right? And that, like, that's really the only way that you could, in my mind, that I could have something worth sharing is if I had to almost like make fun of myself. And
Which we will.
we will, we totally will. Oh, we have those
we
stories. Oh God. Um, and I think that's a beautiful thing about ourselves too, is that like we really don't take ourselves too seriously in that regard. Um, oh God, there's so many different fun stories. Um, but I think that kind of perpetuation of a self belief actually inhibits so many of us from doing things that maybe we really deep down want to do, or we're actually pulled to use a word
Mhm.
that you often, and we'll talk about that, eventually. Um, and so stepping out in a place of discomfort
Yes.
um, is at least in this case is good, and might be a moment where we can encourage somebody else that's considering something that deep down aligns with who they are, that they're not willing to do, or they're not that they're not willing, but something is holding them back, and it's probably a self belief or some kind of
Yes.
self narrative or identity that they've assumed that doesn't align with how they see themselves.
Yeah.
So um, who knows? There might be spin-off podcasts from our listeners and our viewers, or
Mhm.
a book that gets written, or who knows. But deep down, you're right. I am an educator, and um, I, in as a teacher and as an administrator, always encouraged students to find their voice.
Mhm.
And now
Yes.
I'm living that, right? And not only am I living that, but I'm experiencing what it's like to step out into that place of vulnerability. It's scary. I'm so grateful that I have somebody like you, and I hope that Perhaps the tools that we can give some of our educators is how to support students when they do step out into a place of vulnerability, because that is when you are most open to feedback and when the most damage can be done, and also the most growth and support can also happen. So you think about a
Absolutely.
student writing a story and it's a particularly personal story, and maybe they get the paperback and it's just covered in red, and this word wasn't right or that wasn't spelled right. Rather than acknowledging what it is they actually shared, what do they walk away thinking about themselves? So one specific example of um, why I also feel called to having this podcast from an educator standpoint is breaking a cycle that I see that perpetuates education, that does a disservice to the beautiful and just the beautiful nature of so many of our kids who will grow up to change the world and whatnot. So I know I've gotten a little heavy and a little like serious.
No,
Um,
that's the crux of this, though.
yeah, it just means a lot from the educational standpoint, because kids are awesome and they should grow up to see themselves as awesome, so they become adults who see themselves as awesome.
Right. And oftentimes, we as adults, if we have insecurities and self-limiting beliefs, um, it's actually because of our wounded inner
Yeah.
child that we're still carrying. And so, again, this is where many times we heal ourselves. And that's how, in healing ourself and taking care of ourself, it's not selfish
Hmm.
and it's not to the exclusion of others. If anything, it's actually healing oneself and filling one's cup so that one can overflow to
Yeah.
others. How much easier is that than to keep emptying yourself out?
Yeah.
So that, this is what we're hoping for our listeners and our viewers is, we hope that we can help fill your cup and you fill your own cup. And that way you show up more fully, more holy,
Yeah.
holy, WHOLLY, not pious holy. Um, in all of your relationships and your relationships, with friends, family, your kids, students. And that little spark is what will change,
Yeah.
and again, and permeate. And relative to discomfort, a lot of times this discomfort and feeling safe or staying in one's safe lane
Hmm.
is what inhibits growth, right? I
Yeah.
know I'm like that. So as much as people, and people have said, they look at my resume or they look at my quote accomplishments,
Hmm.
um, like you and I have talked about, that's on paper. And
Right.
that's almost like,
Right.
in social media and everything, it's curated. So it's like, that's the highlight reel. But if you saw behind the scenes bloopers of my life, you know um
Oh
boy, that
God.
those are longer reels.
Yeah.
Like there's 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 not enough internet space to hold all of those blooper reels. And so all of the accomplishments that people might see or read about belies, the
Yeah.
journey that it took, and how really the journey is the same for all of us, where we're
Yeah.
trying to find ourselves and find our strength and find our own inner GPS and
Hmm.
our own light. um and so this podcast, ironically, and this, Zachary, as much as I might have pitched this to you, now that we've gotten this rolling, who's been the more nervous? Me.
You.
And
Yeah.
like,
And I'm
let's
like,
get
let's do
out.
it.
Yeah, you're like, let's go. And now I'm like, oh my God, we're doing this. And it's so uncomfortable because the perfectionist in me, which I love it when in job interviews or student interviews, name a flaw of yours. And so many people use,
Yep.
oh, I'm a perfectionist, but
Perfectionist. Yep.
really they say that because they really want to turn it into a
Yes.
positive.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like, see, you want me because I'm a
Right.
perfectionist. When really, actually, perfectionist is a shield. It's an
Yeah.
armor that certainly I hide behind, and it keeps me from trying things
Yep.
and doing things, because my life of achievement oriented and gold star winning and people pleasing, makes me afraid
Yeah.
of doing anything unless I know ahead of time I can get the A+ in
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Right. But like you and I have talked about, B- work changes the world,
Yeah.
because what have I not started? What have I not
Mhm.
done? What have I been afraid to begin because, I didn't think that I could be good at it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know what? If I'm not good at it, it's okay, because that's just one step towards closer to whatever it is that, can flow out of me well. So
Yep.
it's also a lesson learned in
Mhm.
terms of, stop waiting for the ready,
Right.
ready, ready. Okay, aim, fire. It's aim, fire, ready, because it's an evolutionary
Yeah.
process. And I
Yeah.
think our listeners and our viewers might recognize that in themselves and
Uh-huh.
in some
Uh-huh.
of, opportunities in life. And if in any way this helps embolden them and empower them,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Get her done.
Get her done. And also the power of bringing people on board that will help push you or keep you accountable, right?
Yes.
So this is probably a pretty embarrassing story that I'm going to share with you, but I think
Yay.
it speaks a little a little to when I decide that I'm going to do something somewhat uncomfortable or out of my comfort zone or scary or whatnot, my mechanism is I'm gonna go all in, right? Because then I'm like fully committed and so I have struggled with body image my whole life. I grew up husky. I wore the husky sizes as a kid, and um, I mean now I'm more committed to a fitness routine and whatnot, and so I would say I'm in a much healthier place. And I think that that's a whole nother topic about like body image and a set of perfectionism and what is perfect and whatnot. But anyway, so in an attempt to try to get over my fear of being shirtless, because that's really what it is I don't like to be shirtless. I was like, okay, I'm going to conquer this, and decided, this is when we were living in New Jersey, um, we're going to go to nude beaches.
Okay,
Okay.
didn't see that coming, but
No. Okay. But like, so that's just the level of like, okay, if I'm all in, I'm going to go all in. Right. And so you unfortunately or fortunately picked the person who once was on the train with you, is like, we're going to drive the train at 120 miles an hour and we're going to make sure that we get to that next stop. Um, so just the power of picking people to support you, I think, is also critical, and hopefully people will picked us. And once they get on board, then they'll see us as partners in whatever journey that they're on, in whatever area that they that fell.
the
Is that
universe is
a
making a point. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Aw, it fell. I'll put it back
That's
up later.
okay.
That's okay. So did it crack? No, it's okay. Um, so anyway, so yes, maybe we will be thought partners with people on their journey, and hopefully they become for us too, because that would be pretty cool if it becomes reciprocal
Absolutely.
in that way. Um, so I'm excited for what's ahead. I also just want to say to you that I am incredibly grateful and appreciative that you took this first step out there, and willing to do this with me, because just in the time that we have been together preparing this and whatnot, I feel a big change in myself. Um, and I know that's because of the work that we've done. Um, and I also, you say this often, like, you know, words necessarily don't become
Teach.
change to teach in
Oh,
that sense.
words don't teach.
Yeah. So, but what we have talked about has become thoughts that then contribute to um, ideas that become behavior, and now I think I'm in a place much different than I was when we first started talking. So I owe you just a big mahalo and thank you for that. And I'm just so grateful to you for being on this journey, and so just lots of love and adoration for who you are, and for allowing me to see myself in you as well, because the ways that you see me don't always align with the way that I see myself. Um, and uh, and when we
I
get
think
into,
you're extraordinary. And I think that there's extraordinary in all of us. And we just have to see that in ourselves.
yeah,
And by the way, I'm not saying that because I see that in myself all the time. Heck no. I'm about, as insecure as it gets, to be honest. But those moments that are becoming more frequent because of being more mindful of our thoughts, and that's something we can control, our
yeah,
thoughts, our mind, can allow everybody to tap into that extraordinary greatness
yeah.
in ourselves. And you bring that out in me. And I'm grateful to you for this journey. So grateful. And because I'm grateful, I'm joyful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a saying, actually. So actually, I said it wrong, because there's a saying that it's not joy that makes us grateful. It's gratitude that makes us joyful.
Mm.
Well, so maybe I did say it right, because
Yeah.
I'm grateful to you
Yeah, you did.
for stepping out of the zone and doing this with me where I'm also very uncomfortable. But this has been such a joyful process. And, I'm excited for our future purely because of the joy that this has brought. And I specifically use the word joy, and we'll talk about this in future episodes. I of course, I'm happy, but I'm not.
Right.
It's not happiness that this brings me. It's truly a state of joy. Happiness is so circumstantial, and I think that's what many people are in search of, and this elusive pursuit, um, thinking that actually a condition, a circumstance, a situation, a job, a title, an acquisition, um, uh,
Yep.
will bring them happiness. And happiness
Right.
is circumstantial, but joy is a state of being.
State of being. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, there definitely, this journey has sustained that state.
Or one other small, but not, but very significant, not insignificant, piece that I think we need to just highlight and actually bring out is our sign. Yeah. And one facet of our logo that I think could be overlooked, that you get a lot of, you remind me that it's there over and over and over again, and that's been helpful for me. So I think you know what I'm talking about. But in our Simply Enough, obviously we have 2 lines of text. The ME is highlighted in a different color and a different font, so that it's an indication of the work that we're constantly doing for ourselves, and that I as an individual, Simply Enough. But there's another part of the design of the logo that is pretty critical to understanding the purpose of the podcast. So are you comfortable if I just pitch it to you now, and you get to talk about it, or would you like me to talk about it? Just put you on the spot there.
Okay.
The period.
Yes. Okay. Oh, wow. Talk about putting me in my
I'm happy to do it.
Literally, as you introduced it, I was like, oh, good. He's going to talk about it.
I can.
But it is.
Yes.
It's so salient. It's so critical. And that is the period. Because, again, as we've talked about, I think everybody in some facet of their life, or maybe perhaps in every facet of their life, there is this feeling of I am not enough. And we certainly, you and I, we felt, I'm not enough. And we always have felt that we have to qualify,
right,
and validate by external validation. Oh, that person's accepted me, or I've gotten this, this on my resume. Yep. And just qualifying and justification of being enough, when actually we are enough. Period. That's it. Just by being, just by living, we have worth and we have value in that. Yeah. Period. It's not about qualifying. It's not about external validation. Validation is for parking. It's literally, we start simply. It's not complicated. Simply, we are enough. Period. Just as we are.
Full stop.
Full stop.
So as our listeners and viewers see that logo, I think thank you for letting me put you on the spot there. I know you're going to kill me later. But you remind me of the period often in our logo. And so that's why I wanted to give you a chance to explain it. Cause of course you said it beautifully.
But you came up with it. Everybody, Zachary came up with the logo. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. So the funny is you put in the period, you chose to not only put it in, but then put it in a different color. So it's highlighted. So it's a statement in and of itself. And that's all that is a statement, full stop, as you said. I also love, the ME is highlighted so that, yes, me, I am simply enough. And so anybody that sees that sticks out. It helps too that our website is simplyenough.me. Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Well done, Zachary.
Yeah. Well, while B- work does change the world, yes, some of us still are like, oh no, we have to curate everything. It's got
and that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's something that our viewers and our listeners are going to hear a lot. There's certain, just like there are certain triggers traumatically that bring about and open up wounds, self-doubt, self-deprecation, self-flagellation.
Yep.
We have also during this process have learned, and we'd love for viewers and listeners, if this resonates with you, to learn also there are certain mindset triggers too, to kind of reset and self-catch and question some identities and labels that we have accepted from our youth that really are not true. And some of those triggering thoughts that help us catch ourselves and reframe our perspective so that we can recognize our simply enoughness as opposed to our not enoughness or too-much-ness. And one of those phrases is, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that's okay, which we'll talk about again in another episode. What are our other catchphrases? Consider this. So it doesn't have to be a should, right?
Yeah.
So something softer, like consider this.
Consider this.
And then another one is it though?
Is it though? I was waiting.
Our viewers and listeners are like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
We will get into that. And hopefully if it's a tool that helps you, viewers and listeners, it's helped us, right?
That's I think a good transition to what people can come to expect, which is, in our episodes, our hope. Now, this is organic and it may go in a different direction, and that's okay.
That's okay.
But our plan is at least to have some issue that we talk about, some time to kind of really delve into it, and then something actionable or something that we can take away, from the conversation. And maybe just that's it for today, right? And that's okay. Just even that language, I know that has helped me tremendously. These sound bites, and this is where, Elizabeth, you are incredible. I often say that you have a way of distilling an idea down to a phrase or a turn of phrase or words or whatever that gets stuck in my brain in a good way. Is it though is another one. So I would say that given our hope that there's always something that we can leave people with that they can take with them as they go into their week or their life or whatever the next the next task they have after listening to our podcast, and just feeling on this high of I just spent time with my friends, Elizabeth and Zachary, and we just had a good time, is something that they can then put into place or at least try out. So I think for today, and that's okay, is a great one to start off. Obviously, we're going to talk about it even more and really dig into it. But
basically, it's when you find yourself in a situation of, if you're feeling a certain way and you're self-flagellating and trying to fit somebody else's expectation or definition, or you're shaming yourself because of where you are. It's not about being complacent, but it's just recognizing with self-compassion that where you are or what just happened or what you just did makes you feel a certain way or think a certain way, and that's okay.
Yep.
And now what?
Yep.
And that's where there can be movement from that. But you have to, but it's ideal to first come to a place of self-compassion and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm simply enough, period. I'm enough as I am. What's happening, that's okay. And now what? And that's where things can shift or pivot or change.
Yep. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So
perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there we are. So we're right at about 30 minutes. So with that, I would say, episode 1 is.
Oh my gosh.
I know, we did it. We got it done.
Aim, fire, ready. Yay.
We did it.
B- work. That's fine.
Changes the world.
That's okay. And that's okay.
The sign fell, and that's okay. The gardener was cutting, and that's okay.
And sorry, because I know we're about to wrap it up, but it's done. And we've talked about how done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
And, Michelangelo is believed to have said, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm going to murder this, and that's okay. But, it is better to aim high and reach high and miss it than to aim lower and reach it.
Yep.
And so if in aiming high with this first episode, it wasn't great, it's done. And it's a work in progress. And it's something that we build upon and we continue forward from as a journey, but it's done. And we did it. Yay!
Wasn't Wayne Gretzky, his quote is something like, you miss all of the shots that you don't take.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So we took our shot. And I would push back a little bit about it wasn't great. I think if we had sat on it, edited it, scripted it, of course we probably could have crafted it in a way that we would feel aligned more with our tendencies to make things everything like perfect and whatnot. But we did it. Episode 1. Thank you for joining us and listening in. There's a lot more to come. Should we give any teasers to any stories or things that we might talk about?
You guys are in for a treat.
I know. Stay tuned.
I will say one last thing for full disclosure and authenticity. I was on pretty good behavior this time. So I did not drop any F-bombs or did I drop an F-bomb?
Yeah, you did one.
But you're going to be editing that one.
No, that's staying. No, this is who we are. You used an F word and that's okay. I think I used one too.
That's what I'm going to say relative to authenticity this is about as tame as it gets. Hang on, everybody, for this ride. It's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I think I used the word, I think I said ass or whatever, almost as a little permission for you to use, because
my F-bombs.
You tend to use more of that language, but there are studies that say that people that use colorful language that way are actually smarter. So more intelligent, I think is the.
Oh my goodness!
But yes, we have some fun stories to share, some big takeaways. We've said in our description, we may laugh, we may cry. We're gonna do all those things, and you're gonna be with us throughout the journey. So, thank you for joining us for Simply Enough, episode 1.
Thank you. We love you.
We love you.
Just as you are. Just as you are.
Just as you are.
Period. Bye.
So smart. Period. Okay, bye.